the first time I ever went to fish for salmon, I caught a salmon on the second cast. And that was only about 4 miles from here where the crow flies.
And it was a big one?
It was 8 pounds. What actually happened was we had a small house here for a fortnight, my wife and I, and the 2 girls and the 2 boys. And we arrived about 8:30 at night. So I got them all into the house with all the luggage, and I said to Bernie, I think I'll go down to the river for the last hour. So my friend who taught me to fish, a man called James Quinn, who's a great fisherman, and he's nearly 20 years older than me, but he's probably my best friend. He taught me to fly fish on a football field. About a month before I caught the salmon, and he loaned me the rod and the reel, and he tied the fly. It was a Curry's red shrimp. So in the second cast, I cast the line and hooked a salmon. And not having caught a salmon before, didn't really have a notion about what to do. So he often advised me that when you hook a salmon, don't horse it too much, he would say. But all the advice that he gave me went out of my head, and I was so excited, the rod broke. And I was standing up on the bank. You may find this hard to believe. This sounds like a tall tale, but I assure you it's the gospel truth. So I was standing up with the butt of the rod, and the tip of the rod was in the river, and the salmon was lying at the side. So I jumped down into the river, put my 2 hands onto the salmon, and threw it up onto the bank, and walked up the field to the house. And if you had come down that field and offered me £1 million for the salmon, you wouldn't have got the salmon. And that was an incredible introduction to fly fishing. I took my 2 boys fishing then 2 days later on the Crana in near the town of Buncrana and caught another one, which was great.
And did you cook them?
Well, the most important thing to do was photograph them. As proof.
That's very modern, Martin.
As evidence. There are so many Doubting Thomases about. And yes, we cooked it. It was fantastic. Oh,
but now you mentioned something there, which was that you learned to fly fish on a football field.
Yeah.
That must have been very embarrassing. And I actually have a striped umbrella down in the car, which I was going to bring up as a windshield.
Well, you should have brought it because it was red and white, the dairy colours.
It was red and white striped, candy striped. And I thought that it would embarrass the hell out of you to be walking up a mountain on Inishowen with a candy striped umbrella behind us, so I left it there.
I'm not that easily embarrassed. The reason for the football field was because I'm so busy. It's not possible to get to rivers all the time. And when I said to Jamesy, there's no way I can get the hang of the action and all the rest of it. He says, you will? He says, we'll do it on a football field. So it was the next best opportunity for me. And I practiced it, and I practiced it, and I practiced it. And within a month, I had the cast.
And were there any footballers on the field?
No, none at all. We done it about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. But I would have cared less. Yeah. I mean, I would have interrupted their game. But I didn't care who saw me as long as I knew how to fly fish.
Yeah. But how is it now that people like me, I've never had the patience to fish. And I can't imagine that I would have the patience to stand on the bank of a river. Like, what does it take?
I have fished from I was about 10. Oh, Dermot, I'll have to save you here. I'm doing better at this than you are. No bones broken, no.
I fell down a deep hole there.
I think maybe I should go in front, Dermot, and keep you right.
Well, if you went in front, you might fall into the holes. Now, just turn it so that the map is parallel to the road that we left. Yeah, that's right, you've got it that way. Mm. So that's the Carndonagh Road, and that puts Sliabh Snaght up above us. That makes sense, doesn't it? And we've just pulled off on a turf road.
Yeah. Well, obviously this is a place that I would be familiar with, because for many, many years I came here for my summer holidays. My mother's from this area. She's from the Illies, which isn't too far away. And we're here basically in the foothills of Sliabh Snaght. And it's very rough terrain. It's mostly I think
Mostly
turf bog. And looking all around us, we can see the work of the local people who have come here to cut turf and to foot turf. And
the main thing I can see this morning, though, is the fact that it poured rain last night. There was horizontal driven rain. I was over near Letterkenny, and the rain was hopping off the roof all night. So it's lovely and clear now this morning, except for very strong wind.
Well, I was in Derry City last night, and it lashed rain there also, and I had the benefit of seeing the RTE weather forecast, and they gave it a good day for today, and true to their word, we have a pretty windy day, but a sunny day, and I think it's absolutely beautiful for the sort of work that we're engaged in.
It is, but it is very wet. The ground is very wet, and I'm looking up now behind you there. I'm looking up onto Sliabh Snaght itself. Luckily, I can see the scree and rock up on the upper part of it, but we do have a bog to cross to get to it, and I'd say the whole thing is going to be like wading through a turf rick.
Well, I'm depending on you waiting for me, because as I told you on the way here, I broke my left leg playing football in 1998, and that has had some effect on my mobility, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great day for it, and we'll take our time and we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, and one of the nice things is actually being able to see where you're going, because the whole Sliabh Snaght itself is very clear now at the moment, so we can see the route across to it. But we'll be trying to pick a sheltered way in order to stay out of the wind as much as possible, in order to be able to chat and talk and that, because there is a howling wind blowing across the open moorland there. Now, I have to say, Martin's very nicely turned out. He's got a fine pair of walking boots, which I think are probably going to end up quite dirty after the trek across the bog. A fleece, rucksack, and generally going to keep himself warm. We're both carrying lunches. I didn't manage to sneak my lunch into his rucksack in order to spread the weight, but I might pull that off at some stage.
I'm really looking forward to this, because in all the time that I came here down the years, as I told you, my mother's from this area, I've never climbed Sliabh Snaght, so I'm looking forward to it very much indeed. I often wonder, Dermot, how you get into this game, this nomadic lifestyle that you lead.
I often wondered, how am I going to get out of it?
Oh, I think you're finished. There's no prospect of you getting out of it. I climbed Errigal when my youngest son was about 6 years of age, and my oldest son was 10. Three of us went up together, and they were like mountain goats, and it amazed me that they had not alone no difficulty in getting up there, but no fear at all of what lay at the top, where I was obviously very concerned about them and their safety, but they were great. It was a tremendous experience, and I suppose climbing is.
But when you're walking with children or climbing with children, I've found that you tend to worry about them.
Oh, absolutely.
And they play on that. You know, they go to the opposite extreme to show you there's absolutely
they want to show you how brave and courageous they are.
And how feeble and old you are yourself.
Well, they succeeded on that occasion, but that was about 15 years ago now. And I must say, this has rekindled my desire to do more of it. It's a tremendous experience.
Well, that looks wet. I'd say if we go along here. One of the things I find with mountains in Ireland is you get a sense of the colour of the vegetation and the ground underfoot.
Yeah.
And you get this reflexive sense of whether it's going to be squelchy, wet, soft.
Yeah.
And you almost pick your way according to the colours and textures that you're looking at.
Yeah, well, I suppose when you're used to this type of walking, as I am fairly used to that type of walking when I'm fly fishing or fishing in general, it's a good experience. You can usually pick out the dodgy spots and stay on the terra firma as much as possible.
And you get to be able to read a river as well, of course. You know, I'm sure that as a fly fisherman and so on, you're looking at eddies and swirls and movements in the river.
Absolutely, it's
Watch it here, it's wet.
it's a tremendous education if you're into that type of a lifestyle. But unfortunately for me, I don't get too many opportunities to do it. But through time, you learn in abundance about the geography and topography of particular areas, and where the difficult spots are and where the easy avenues to the river are.
Great. We'll save our breath. There's a bit of a steep pull coming up here, up this escarpment beside us now.
I have a feeling that those 3 or 4 sheep that we stampeded on further down are going to lead us the whole way to the top. I keep seeing them in the distance.
I spent a couple of months in Iran last year, the year before,
That must have been a tremendous
travelling with
experience.
sheep and goats and, the herders.
Yeah.
We travelled for 2 months, and I suppose we covered about 400 miles with the animals. You get to know a lot about sheep and goats.
Well, I'd say you get to know an awful lot about people too, because I was amazed to hear that the people in those areas actually drove their livestock some distance of 300-400 miles for better vegetation. I mean, that's akin to farmers in Derry driving their sheep to Kerry. Just unimaginable in my thought process.
They probably would do it if the headage payments were.
Well, they just might. I'm not sure that they would. This is a bit of a stream here.
Yeah, we just step into it down at this end. A little bit of high ground. There's a big bowl of moss here now.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you have to be
saturated.
philosophical about it, because that's flowing down into the Cranna River, and that's bringing the salmon up to spawn. Much needed, much needed. But I was down at Inch one day. Inch was it's a man-made lake. I was walking along the shore of it one day, and this huge hare jumped out in front of me. It was an incredible experience. Absolutely incredible. It was so majestic looking. It just knocked me for 6, just like that guy did a couple of minutes ago.
And they're so wild. Whereas, you know, rabbits have that domesticated look, and yet hares are such, well, they're like deer really, and it's in the name. Gyorea is a short deer. But they have that wildness. Oh, there he goes. Look.
Oh, there he is. There he is, big guy. Oh, he's beautiful, isn't he?
Yeah, sort of dark brown.
And he can move.
Yeah.
He can move.
He's gone out of sight there. It's
He's
big.
way down behind the rock. He's waiting on us coming down. It's one day here. Say it's one day here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that was a fairly squelchy bit.
I was born in a city, and as I explained to you earlier, whenever I was very young, I spent all of my summer holidays here in Donegal. I loved, everything about it, being beside the river, being able to fish, being able to, cut turf and foot turf and cut hay and work generally with cattle and just enjoy the outdoor life, and being able to roam up into places like this and sit there for an hour and peace and contentment. And whenever I went back into Derry City, the tears used to be streaming down my face. Not that I didn't like Derry, I loved Derry and still do, but it was just such a release for me to be out of the city and in the countryside, experiencing a whole different way of life.
But school
And I think-
was tough as well, though, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. School was very tough.
Yeah.
I went to the Christian Brothers, and
So
the
did I.
vast majority of them were good and decent people. Well, I have to say there were a number of head cases among them, and
Yeah.
one of them in particular just turned me off education
Yeah.
completely. I couldn't get away from school quickly enough.
Yeah.
But I think that, having access to the countryside and away from the trials and tribulations of city life is something that is always very, very precious to me. And I think it's really a matter of education and proper debate so that everybody has a very clear understanding of the rights of landowners, but also the rights of people who live in the city who wish to experience country life.
Of course, we'll have to pick a spot that's half in shelter and half out of it. Well, if we're in the shelter, the midges will get it.
Oh, right.
If we're outside, the wind will get it. Yeah, try that slab there anyway. It's a lovely bit of quartzite, I think. Great patterns on it with the lichen like sort of rust. Oh, look at it. And they like the maps,
like a map of Europe.
Or the counties.
Yeah.
The counties of Ireland. All the different patches with the little borders between them.
That's amazing.
It's like it's part of the surface of the rock, but it's all those lichens. I think I see Loch Ness there. And Belfast, nice. There's a little bit of bird shit there. See the blotch?
Around Belfast? Otherwise.
Do you see that? It's like urbanisation.
Yeah.
Now, where does that put Derry? Somewhere over. Yeah, there's Loch Foyle.
Yeah, well, Belfast will be down here.
Oh, well, we don't want to be too literal now.
That looks more like
Ballymena.
Mahara or Maharfield.
It definitely puts Derry. Yeah, that's Loch Foyle there.
Yeah.
Donegal here. The Atlantic coast out here. It's extraordinary.
It's amazing the way the borders are there, isn't it?
Fantastic.
Unbelievable.
And it's even got partition because the whole south is missing off it. Look, it just stops. It just stops down here.
BBC Weather map.
Yeah. God, it's a symbolic outing. All right.
Absolutely. As you see, it's time for a cup of tea.
Yeah. And the church where your mother got, where your parents got married, and you got married yourself, is just down the road.
Yeah, we just passed it on the way on the road. It's Cockhill Chapel.
Yeah.
My father, God have mercy on him, is buried there. But my father and mother were married there. My father is a Derry City man, and my mother is from here, as you know, and she came into Derry in the 1940s, and she's still with us. Thank God, she's tremendous. She's over 80 years of age now. And she worked in the shirt factories, and she met my father, and they got married. And my father died in 1973. I was on the run at the time, and the British Army and the RUC had surrounded the hospital. He took ill, and he was dead really within 2 or 3 days. And my mother wouldn't hear of having the wake in Derry for fear that I would be arrested. So they brought him south to Donegal, but he couldn't be in a better place. And the place where he was married.
Strange things are happening though. Like one of the reasons the Irish language is doing really well down around Dublin and Galway and places like that.
And West Belfast?
Well, I'm not familiar with the West Belfast situation as much as the others, but it's a middle class thing down in those other areas, you know, where people actually recognise the schools are really good, giving really good quality education, so they're sending their kids.
Well, it's the opposite then in the north, because it's very much a working class movement.
Yeah. And
I mean, when I was in the Department of Education as Minister, it was quite clear to me that there were huge demands out there within working class areas in the north for children to be educated through the medium of Irish.
But what we all remember is the 11 plus thing. I mean, that was.
I remember it too, and the 11 plus very shortly will be history. I'd like to think I played a small part in making it history, but that debate has been won now comprehensively.
But it was one of those things that you just feel the implications of it all.
It's terrible. It is terrible. I have to say, the most powerful statement for me was made by a 10-year-old child. She was asked what the 11 plus meant to her, and she said, well, if I pass, I go to a smart school. If I fail, I'll go to a stupid school. And I think that was a damn indictment of the education system in the north.
That's great. I hope somebody knocks out the Intercert and the Leaving Cert as well. I'm in my late 50s now and I still have horrible memories of them.
I think what we need is an all-Ireland education system. That's essentially what we need.
The wind is starting to pick up again. Still sunny down there and so on, but we'll just gather up anyway. That's the lunch done and we'll head on. I don't think it's far to the summit now.
It's fantastic, this, isn't it? It's really beautiful.
Yeah. And it's like upholstery. It's that sort of moss.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
You could cover a sofa in that, and it'd be the pride of your sitting room.
It's really, really pinky reddish.
Yeah, dense moss.
Yeah.
With the heather growing up around it.
And spongy. Full of water.
Yeah. I sometimes feel with that kind of thing when you look at them, it's like if you're in an airplane very, very high above the landscape and you look down, and a mountain sometimes looks like that. So that all that lovely pinky
California
purple.
looks like that, that's for sure. I've been over it a few times.
And the heather there, the green heather, looks like trees from 20,000 feet. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's gorgeous there.
I haven't got the figure in my head, Martin. We'll have a look at the map when we...
It's certainly not as high as Errigal.
No. A couple of 1,000 feet, I'm only guessing. You still have that schoolboy footballer thing, you're carrying your rucksack over one shoulder.
Yeah.
That's the way they always carry the football gear. Sort of to be ready for action.
I only did that because I thought once we got over that little bit of a rocky face that we were there.
Only, I think that, I'm assuming that bit of rock up there is the top. There's always a shoulder.
Oh yeah.
There's always an extra bit. Here we are on top of Sliabh Snaght. It's 615 metres, which is what? About 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
It's a good, energetic 2,000 feet too, isn't it?
It is indeed. It was most exhilarating but most exhausting.
Walk. The view, on a day like today, when you get a view like that.
It's fantastic.
If we can stop that map from whipping, because it makes an awful bang. The most exhilaration to get that view. There's a white van way, way down in the distance there, travelling along the Carndonagh Road.
See that? Yeah.
Yeah, Malin, Cowan Wall and the Malin Head.
This is Malin Head here, directly ahead.
Way, way off out in the sea.
Yeah.
To the north.
Yeah.
Trobrega Bay. Loch Foyle then.
Loch Foyle's way east again.
Way east. And,
in fact, more that direction.
Yeah. Okay, so Derry, can you pick out Derry at all? I think it's lost in the haze down there.
It's too hazy now.
Don't want to see it anyway.
Too hazy.
Too urban for today.
But I get a sense of great peace and contentment in a place like this. You're away from the cares of the world. And in places like this, I could quite easily sit here for a couple of hours on my own and just gaze out over the landscape and feel completely at peace with myself and with the world. I suppose what it highlights is that I don't do this often enough. I have to make some sort of a promise to myself that I need to do this more, and actually exhort all our members of my family to do it more, because I think that what more valuable time could you spend? The walk up, the ability to sit in peace and contentment and look out over the landscape and just reflect on life and really not think about anything at all. I mean, if anything, particularly a politician's head and my head, given all of the work that we're engaged in, it's just so crammed full of stuff all the time, that to be in a place like this and let it all out, just not to think of anything, is something that's very therapeutic. but I really should be fitter than what I am. But there was one or two times coming up that I did feel under some pressure, not to an extent that I would have given up, not in the least. I would never have given up on a trip like this, because I was very determined to reach the top and to see the top of it, and also to see what is an absolutely amazing view. No matter where you go, we're here standing really at a cairn, which I suppose somebody wishes to be a replica of Green and Availik.
Yeah.
And no matter where you walk around it, you're just faced with these spectacular views of the whole of County Donegal, stretching way over into County Derry. And it's such a peaceful experience. It is absolutely out of this world. Tremendous.
Would you like to travel more, though? Would you like to have the opportunity to travel a lot more in your life?
Well, people say to me, as they say every year, where are you going on your holidays? And I say I'm going home, because I spent so much time out of Derry, in my constituency, in Belfast, in Dublin, in Washington, in New York. The only place I like going is home. I love my own house, being with my own family, and there are countries, yes, I would like to see, but I'm not overly excited about it. I just like going home. I like being in the peace and quiet of my own house, and among my own people.